There is a moment, quiet, invisible to the outside world, when a man who has lost everything decides what kind of man he wants to be next. Not on a golf course, not in front of cameras, not in the cold fluorescent glow of a lawyer's office, but alone, in the dark, when the noise finally stops and all that's left is the question he can't escape. Do I still believe in something? Tiger Woods has been to the bottom. He has stood at the edge of his own destruction and looked down. He has watched a marriage collapse in real time on the front pages of every newspaper on earth. He has seen his name become a punchline, a cautionary tale, a cultural wound that people couldn't stop picking at. He has lost endorsements worth hundreds of millions of dollars in the span of 48 hours. He has had cameras follow his children to school. He has read things about himself, brutal, invasive, humiliating things that no human being should have to read about themselves. And yet, here he is, in love again, refusing, against every legal warning, against every rational argument his team can construct, refusing to sign a prenuptial agreement with the woman who has quietly, steadily become the most important person in his life. His lawyers have told him the risk. His financial advisors have laid out the numbers. People who have watched this man rebuild himself from ash have sat across from him and said, "Tiger, you cannot do this again. You cannot leave yourself exposed like this." And Tiger Woods, the most calculating, disciplined, psychologically armored competitor in the history of professional sport, looked them in the eye and said no. Why? That is the question that has been whispered in boardrooms, debated by legal commentators, and quietly haunted everyone who knows this story. Why would a man who lost so much, who paid so dearly for his first act of recklessness, walk willingly into this kind of vulnerability? Is it love? Is it pride? Is it something deeper, something that lives in the part of a man that money cannot reach and logic cannot touch? That is what we are going to find out. And if you have ever loved someone when it wasn't safe to, if you have ever trusted again after being shattered, then this story is going to feel very, very familiar. If you're new here and stories like this, stories about human beings navigating impossible choices, resonate with you, take a second right now and subscribe. We dig into the real psychology behind the headlines every single week. To understand why Tiger won't sign, you have to understand what signing the first time cost him. Not financially, emotionally. Tiger Woods married Ellen Nordegren on October 5, 2004, at the Sandy Lane Resort in Barbados. It was, by every external measure, a fairy tale. The greatest golfer alive. A former Swedish model of stunning beauty and quiet intelligence. A ceremony attended by some of the most powerful people in sport and entertainment. They looked, from the outside, like two people who had everything. And for a while, perhaps they did. But Tiger Woods had been carrying a secret life for years. A life of compulsive behavior, recklessness, and betrayal that would eventually detonate in the most public, most devastating way imaginable. On the night after Thanksgiving in 2009, a single-car accident in the driveway of his own home unraveled everything. What followed was not just a divorce. It was a psychological demolition. It was the erasure of a carefully constructed public identity. Tiger Woods, the focused, robotic, invincible champion, turned out to be a deeply broken human being. The divorce settlement reportedly reached somewhere in the region of $100 million, though the exact figure has never been officially confirmed. Some sources have placed it considerably higher. What is confirmed is that Ellen walked away financially protected, and Tiger walked away carrying something no dollar amount could address: the knowledge of what he was capable of, the knowledge of how badly he could hurt someone, and the specific, searing shame of having done it publicly, in front of his children, his late father's memory, and a watching world. Here's something that most people miss when they talk about Tiger and prenuptial agreements. When you have been through that kind of catastrophic public collapse, when you have sat in a room and negotiated the financial terms of your own failure, a prenup stops being a legal document. It becomes a symbol. It becomes evidence of what you believe about the person in front of you. And for Tiger Woods, asking Vanessa to sign one would mean something very specific. It would mean, I am already planning for this to fail. It would mean, I don't fully trust you. It would mean, I am still the man who destroys things. And that is the man he is fighting, every single day, not to be anymore. Think about someone in your life who refused to protect themselves, because protecting themselves would have meant admitting they didn't believe in what they were building. Drop their name in the comments, or just drop a red heart. You're not alone in that. Now let's talk about Vanessa, because she is central to this story in ways that go far beyond romance. Vanessa, who has been careful to maintain her privacy throughout her relationship with Tiger, is by all accounts not what anyone expected. She is not a celebrity. She is not someone chasing the spotlight. She has reportedly been consistent, grounded, and, perhaps most importantly, patient in a way that people close to Tiger describe as almost disarming. In a world where Tiger Woods has been surrounded by people who want something from him, sponsors, agents, yes men, opportunists, Vanessa reportedly arrived as something rarer, someone who seemed to want nothing more than him. That, psychologically, is destabilizing for someone like Tiger. People who have experienced profound betrayal, and Tiger is both the betrayer and someone who has been shaped by betrayal since childhood, often develop finely tuned radar for manipulation. They become hypervigilant. They scan every interaction for evidence of hidden agenda. They trust their suspicion more than their hope. For Tiger to lower those defenses enough to be in this relationship at all, let alone refuse legal protection within it, suggests something significant happened. Something shifted in him. People close to the situation have described a version of Tiger that the public rarely sees. Quieter, more present, less consumed by the relentless machinery of winning. There are accounts of him being more emotionally available to his children, Sam and Charlie, in recent years, more willing to be a father first and a legend second. And those who have watched this evolution suggest that Vanessa has been quietly central to it, not by demanding change, but by simply being someone safe enough, consistent enough, that change became possible. When a deeply guarded person begins to open, they don't do it halfway. And this may be the truest explanation for the prenup refusal that no legal analyst will ever give you, because it lives outside the law. Tiger isn't refusing to sign because he's naive about risk. He's refusing to sign because, for the first time in a very long time, he has chosen to believe in something. And formalizing doubt, putting cynicism into contract form, would be an act of violence against that belief. He has already lived the version of his life where he protected himself from emotional exposure by compartmentalizing, by performing, by building walls. He knows where that road goes. It goes to a driveway in Florida at 2 in the morning, and a life in ruins, and children who had to grow up understanding things children shouldn't have to understand. He is not going back there. His lawyers are telling him one thing. His heart is telling him another. And somewhere in that gap is every decision any of us has ever made about whether to trust again. If this story is hitting something real for you, if you've ever been in that gap, this video deserves a like. Not for the algorithm, because you recognize something true in it. But let's be honest about the legal reality, because it is genuinely alarming from a purely financial standpoint, and we would be doing this story a disservice if we pretended otherwise. Tiger Woods' net worth, at its peak, was estimated at approximately $1 billion. After the divorce, after years of injury that kept him from competing at his highest level, after the 2021 car accident that nearly cost him his leg and possibly his career, that number contracted significantly. But Tiger has continued to earn. His deal with Sunday Red, his clothing partnership, his golf course design ventures, his continued presence in the game. These are not the activities of a man whose earning days are behind him. Conservatively, Tiger Woods remains one of the wealthiest athletes alive. Without a prenuptial agreement, in the event of a marriage ending in divorce, Vanessa would potentially have legal claim to assets accumulated during the marriage, depending on the jurisdiction and the specific financial arrangements. In some states, the exposure could be substantial. His legal team understands this. His financial advisors understand this. They have reportedly made their position clear, repeatedly and forcefully. And Tiger has reportedly listened, nodded, understood every word, and held his position. There is something almost defiant in this. Something that speaks not to recklessness, but to a very deliberate choice about what kind of man he intends to be in this chapter of his life. There are people who get burned once and spend the rest of their lives building firewalls. And there are people who get burned once and decide that living behind firewalls is its own kind of death. Tiger Woods, it seems, has decided he would rather be vulnerable and present than safe and closed. This is not the Tiger Woods the world built its mythology around. The Tiger Woods of legend was pure control, pure discipline. A man who felt nothing on the course, showed nothing in defeat, gave nothing away in victory. That image, the robotic, emotionless machine, is what made him extraordinary as a golfer. But it is what made him catastrophic as a human being in relationship. The man refusing to sign a prenup is not that Tiger. This is a Tiger who has sat with his failures long enough to understand them, who has watched his own children grow and felt the weight of the example he is setting, who has, perhaps for the first time in his life, decided that he wants to be known, really known, and loved anyway. We talk so much about what famous people lose. We almost never talk about what they have to unlearn. Tiger Woods has had to unlearn invulnerability. That is not a small thing. That might be the hardest thing. There is another layer to this story that rarely gets discussed, and it requires going back to Tiger's childhood, because all roads in Tiger Woods lead back there eventually. Earl Woods, Tiger's father, was a complicated man, a veteran, a dreamer, a man of enormous ambition who saw in his son something he was determined to forge into greatness. Earl's influence on Tiger was total and early. He began training Tiger before Tiger could walk. He built a mental architecture in his son designed for one singular purpose: dominance. Earl famously used psychological pressure in Tiger's early training, deliberately disturbing his concentration, testing his focus, building the kind of mental toughness that borders on conditioning. And it worked. In golf terms, it worked beyond anyone's wildest imagination. But psychological conditioning for invulnerability has a cost. And the cost is this: you stop knowing how to need people. You stop knowing how to be soft. You stop knowing how to let someone in without experiencing it as weakness. Earl Woods died in May of 2006. Tiger has spoken about his father's death as the most significant loss of his life. And it is worth noting, without overreaching psychologically, that Earl died before the scandal. He died before Tiger's public unraveling. He died, in some sense, still believing in the version of his son that Tiger could no longer sustain. There is grief in that. There is complicated grief in that. The grief of a man who could not be honest with his father while his father was alive, and now can never have the conversation he perhaps needed most. And when you carry that kind of unfinished grief, when you carry the knowledge that the person who shaped you most never saw the real you, it creates a hunger to be seen fully, to be known completely, to have a love that doesn't require performance. That hunger is not irrational. It is one of the most human things imaginable. And it may be, more than any legal calculation or romantic impulse, the deepest reason Tiger refuses to build a legal exit into his relationship with Vanessa. Because a prenup says, here is where you end and I begin. And what Tiger may be searching for, what he may finally have found, is a love where that line dissolves. Now, there are people who will read this and say, this is romanticizing irresponsibility. A man with Tiger's assets and Tiger's history should absolutely protect himself and his children's inheritance. And that argument is not without merit. Sam and Charlie deserve financial security that transcends whatever happens in their father's romantic life. That is a real and legitimate concern. But here is the counterargument, and it is the one that apparently lives in Tiger's chest when he lies awake at night thinking about this. What does it do to a relationship, to the lived, daily emotional reality of a relationship, when both people know that one of them has already legally prepared for its ending? There is research on this. Psychologists who study marital dynamics have noted that prenuptial agreements, while practically sensible, can introduce a subtle but persistent undercurrent of conditional commitment. A quiet awareness that the exit is marked, that someone has already calculated what the failure would cost. For most couples, this pragmatism is simply part of modern life. But for a man who has already experienced a marriage where trust was never fully real, where he was performing closeness rather than feeling it, the idea of introducing legal conditionality into a relationship may feel not like protection, but like repetition. Like building the same house again with different wallpaper. Tiger Woods has spent decades performing. On the course, in press conferences, in his marriage, in his public persona. He has been the greatest actor of emotional control in the history of sport. And somewhere along the way, the performance became the prison. He doesn't want to perform commitment. He wants to feel it. And he has apparently decided that feeling it, fully and without legal escape hatch, is worth more to him than whatever financial exposure it creates. Can you blame him? And more than that, can you understand him? Because if you've ever stood at a crossroads between self-protection and complete surrender to something you believed in, you know exactly what it costs to choose the latter. That kind of courage doesn't ask for likes. But if this story has unlocked something in you, something about trust and love and what it means to begin again, then let this video know. It keeps stories like this one alive. There is a version of this story that ends badly. We have to name that. We live in a world where Tiger Woods' romantic history is not a reassuring data set. The people around him who counsel caution are not wrong to do so. Love is not always enough. Trust is not always returned. And the kind of emotional openness Tiger appears to be practicing is not a guarantee of anything. It is simply a choice, made daily, to believe in the possibility of something real. But there is another version of this story, and it is the one that I think the people closest to Tiger are quietly, carefully hoping for. In this version, Vanessa is exactly who she appears to be. Steady, real, uncomplicated by ambition or agenda. In this version, Tiger's refusal to sign a prenup is not a mistake waiting to happen, but a statement of faith. The kind of faith that, when it is met with equal faith, creates something almost unbreakable. In this version, the man who was destroyed by his own inability to be honest with the person he married is finally, at whatever cost, trying to do it differently. And maybe, just maybe, doing it differently is the whole point. Not just for Tiger, but for everyone watching. For every person who has ever thought, I ruined something I can never get back. Does that mean I'm done? Does that mean I don't deserve another attempt at something true? Tiger Woods has 15 major championships. He has a career so extraordinary that sports historians will be writing about it for centuries. He has survived injuries that would have permanently ended most athletic careers. He has clawed back from personal failure in ways that the mental health community still studies. And perhaps the most remarkable thing he has ever done, more remarkable than any birdie on the 18th, any Sunday red charge, any miraculous recovery from the rough, is this. He chose, at a point when no one would have blamed him for closing permanently, to open. That is what the prenup story is really about. It is not about money. It was never about money. It is about a man who knows, in his bones, what it cost him to be closed, and has decided, in full view of every risk and every scar, that he would rather take the chance. If you're someone who comes back here week after week because you believe that the real stories, the ones behind the headlines, the ones that live in the space between who people appear to be and who they actually are, deserve to be told with honesty and depth, then this channel exists for you. Subscribe, not because we asked, but because you know this is a place where human beings get treated like human beings. Tiger Woods and Vanessa's story is still being written. We don't know how it ends. We don't know what the lawyers will eventually decide, or whether Tiger will eventually yield to the pressure and formalize something, or whether the relationship will continue exactly as it is, unprotected, unguarded, and, perhaps because of that, something closer to real than anything Tiger has had before. What we know is this: a man who had everything, lost almost everything, and rebuilt himself in the rubble, has made a choice. The choice is not logical. It is not strategic. It is not the kind of choice that wins you points in a boardroom or earns approval from financial advisors. It is the choice that says, I believe in this. I believe in her. I believe in the version of myself that is capable of being loved by her. And I am not going to document my doubt in a legal agreement and hand it to the world as evidence that I haven't changed. That is not naivety. That is not recklessness. That is something rarer, and in some ways braver, than anything Tiger has ever done under pressure on a golf course. That is a man trying, with everything he has, to be new. And that, whatever you think about prenups, about wealth, about celebrity, about Tiger Woods the icon versus Tiger Woods the human being, is a story worth telling.